It's time for us to revolutionize the Game of the Year format. So may I introduce to you and the viewers at home the Murph Diagram.
Whoa!
Okay, so dear listener, we're going to move on to the Daydreamcast 2023 Game of the Week retrospective. And for this, I have constructed a different Murph diagram that I dubbed the Monstrosity, because I wasn't content with just three bubbles for this. Because there's games of the weeks we play that tickle our fancy, that we would recommend, that we respect the craft of, but Daydreamcast is also more about playing games that just sort of pique our interest a bit. And sometimes that piquing doesn't pay off. And so I have added a fourth bubble, which is for games that are just a bit smelly. And here, drink it in.
Oh my god. That's a monstrosity of a diagram.
And we have all 18 games that we have played in the 2023 season. Chunks of which I'm not even on, but I will still voice opinions for the ones I played. And we're going to tackle them in order, slotting them into the monstrosity as we debate and gnash our teeth and compromise and bend the knee.
We start with Mario Sunshine.
Yep, we started the year with Mario Sunshine.
I feel like we started the year wanting a tropical experience. We wanted a vacation season. And it did turn into that. I think by the end, it turned into a dark, morbid season.
Yeah, dear listener, you can't see the list of games, but definitely just like the vibes of the box art get steadily more dour as it goes on, and then it the very last one, it ticks up again to happy fun vacation times.
Yep. Maybe that's a hint towards next season, or maybe it's out like Alan Wake 2 and it's all cyclical.
So I am on record saying Mario Sunshine is probably my favorite 3D Mario, and I waffle all the time between that and Mario Odyssey. But for me, it very easily fits into Tickle My Fancy. Where do you feel otherwise?
Oof. All right. We're going to have to do some wheeling and dealing here.
Okay.
I'm going to say my opinion.
Okay.
I feel like every major 3D Mario game is a must play for a person that wants to explore the genre and wants to explore Mario as a franchise. I think Mario Sunshine, if you're even barely interested in what Mario is, you should play it. I don't like the game very much. I think it's good.
That's understandable. I was about to say, I can easily also edge it into just a bit smelly.
Here's what I'm going to say. You should put Mario Sunshine into everything, just everything with just a bit smelly. Something like that, maybe. I don't really respect the craft too much. I like its innovation, and I like the other thing I liked was the organic level design. It's the only one where it's like, oh, I'm in a town, and the town is like actively
but that's
moving.
not
the
like
platforms make sense, but it's not enough.
That's not like a back of the box like selling point to me. Like I wouldn't say I respect the craft of Mario Sunshine. It just has vibes that I find pleasing, and it does have these weird difficulty spikes and these weird challenge levels that do make it just a bit smelly. So I'm totally fine doing like would recommend, tickles my fancy, and just a bit smelly.
That's a good spot for it.
King's Quest VI, air today, gone tomorrow.
I like this a lot.
Yeah, it's my favorite King's Quest, one of my favorite point and click adventures. We did like back-to-back games Murph really loves. I think for me, it's perfectly fine going into tickles my fancy and would recommend.
Ooh. All right, I'm going to be real here.
Okay.
I don't think there's a spot for it.
Oh.
I would put tickles my fancy, respects the craft, but not would recommend. I would not recommend, and I don't think it's smelly. I
Okay.
think this is a very particular game. I think a lot of people nowadays don't like point and clicks, and this is an older kind of point and click.
I think
And
they like point and
there's a
clicks by a
DRM
different name these
section.
days.
Oh, what's that?
I think they like point and clicks by a different name these days.
Well, there's differences now too. Like a modern like Telltale point and click doesn't
Yeah.
have the complex puzzles. So
Mm-hmm.
the complex puzzles or DRM efforts or things like that, they're much more like the sort of cinematic storytelling elements with some
Yes.
choices layered in.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is much more classic. Like here's a random fucking puzzle. I better hope you got an item from 10 screens ago in a different area.
Yeah. Yeah. And and a lot of those like rough patches are sort of like I don't even see those anymore because I've played this game enough times that I just know the solution to everything. It's hard for me to cast my mind back to when I didn't know those solutions.
Yeah.
So I can definitely accept that I have rose tinted glasses on it if we want to edge it out of tickles my fancy.
Nah. Because it tickles my fancy too. The only thing is I just want to recommend it for random people. Does that make
That's
sense?
that's fair. Yeah, that's totally understandable. You kind
It's
of
a Day Dreamcast game. The Day Dreamcast episodes are not based on viewer whim. They are not for you, dear viewer. They are for us. And in that, I think King's Quest 6 is for us.
all right, fair enough. I'm fine with that. So, the now we entered the Murph wasn't around section. Uh
Oof.
of the
Rough.
episodes. So we got Jet Set Radio, which I have only played a little of, just like the first area, but this is an episode you did with Calvin.
Yep.
Where do you feel this falls?
I think Cal would put it right in the perfect it's the best game of all time. I don't think it is. I think the jumping is a little too floaty, a little too stiff. Um you can't I cannot deny the craft. So no matter what, it's going in the respect the craft bubble.
Okay.
I don't know if it tickles my fancy. I'm not like a crazy big fan of the game. I think it's a really good game. It's a must play for a person interested in the genre and the cultural history and all that. Um
It's
put it
coasting
in
on vibes.
maybe maybe put it in tickles my fancy, or actually respects the craft and would recommend in just a little bit smelly.
Okay.
But it's not tickles my fancy, and it is not, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's definitely like the most Dreamcast game there ever was.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I don't think either of us played it, but we got a lot of like Jet Set Radio alikes.
I
Right.
did play Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
Okay, yes.
And that was good. It was good. It was a little too. It's not innovative, but it streamlines the thing. So like,
It's got
if
that
you're
ukulele syndrome.
well, it's the thing where it's, yeah, exactly. Where it's like, if you've played Jet Set Radio, you're not going to be impressed by Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. But if you play Jet Set Radio and thought this is a little too smelly for me,
Yeah.
Bomb Rush Cyberpunk doesn't have the control problems, doesn't have the older design sensibilities that may limit a player back. So, it's one of those things.
Okay. And then you did a Telling Lies episode with our friend Tucker from Backlog Banter.
I was impressed by this. I was very impressed by this. It is it's like Her Story. You've played Her Story before.
Yeah.
In that, I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier about having it be your way. You search keywords and you find clips, but because of the way our brains work, you never see the clips in the same order as someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that it tells a personal story. There's some UI problems with it, but I think in terms of story, I think it's really well done. I'm gonna put it in would recommend and respect the craft.
Yeah. Based on listening back over the episode, that definitely seemed to be the vibe.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know how you would go about like making a game like this or Her Story. Like just like
Yeah.
the plotting of everything out and the UI aspect of that is really impressive.
The script alone would sound so crazy to me.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna get into, because I basically did a Mother trilogy. First time we've ever done this, a Mother trilogy with David.
Yes.
And thank him so much for this. It was kind of a long undertaking.
Remember,
I don't think I block it out, but it's like I did 3 hours of talking just about Mother 3.
Remember when you said 2023 was the year of the JRPG, and then you did the Mother trilogy back to back and said, I'm full now?
Yeah, basically.
So where does Mother 1 fall?
Did you listen to the episode?
When it first came out?
Okay. So Mother 1 is an NES Dragon Quest clone. Mm-hmm. It's a very rough around the edges, for sure in the smelly category. And I don't think I would recommend it either. I think put it in just spit smelly and tickles my fancy. I think there's something special about Mother 1 that the other two don't have.
It feels fresh.
It's a je ne sais quoi that's only to Mother 1. Maybe it's the... I don't know. If there was ever a remake, I would want a Mother 1 remake because there's so much heart into it. And not to say there isn't heart in the other two, but what I guess because of all the gameplay limitations and what sucks about it, the only thing that stands out that's good is the special stuff. So that it just balances out like that. Mother 2 is, I think, pretty perfect as a game.
Okay, Mother 2, otherwise known as Earthbound.
Yes, I would put it in, would recommend, respect the craft, tickles my fancy, and not smelly.
Oh, so right here.
If I were to recommend any game from the trilogy, it would probably be Mother 2. It is very much like a Super Nintendo, the nice thing is it has a very unique battle system and encounter system, so it's not random battles. The humor is so sharp and witty and relatable, especially to Americans. It's a view on American culture through a Japanese perspective and a Japanese auteur. So in that, it's, I think, a very special game. And then Mother 3 is, I think, it's a much more complex, multi-layered game that has less to do with it has less to do with an essential childhood element to it and is much more abstract. It takes place on, nowhere islands with funny creatures and like a much more complex and dense story that jumps from multiple protagonists and can be a little messy. So in that, it's going to be a little smelly. However, I think it's going to accompany, or it's going to be just like the other one. Tickles my fancy, would recommend, respect the craft. However, put just a little bit smelly in there because I feel like there's a bit of a barrier. I feel like some people start it and then drop it after, say, the first or second chapter because it's a much more long game. For me, it's one of the few video games that feels like a book or a play in how dense it is.
So you think right here in the middle of all four?
Yes.
Okay. The perfect video game.
Yeah, just a little bit of smelly makes it perfect, yes.
Just got that stank on it, because that way you know that when you whole heart recommend it with your whole chest, that you're being entirely subjective. And there's the purity of the statement.
Well, in terms of like a personal thing, I will say Mother 3 may be my favorite game of all time. And I try to underplay stuff like that when analyzing or critiquing. But like, my mother died like when I was like 17. And then like the first big RPG I played after that was Mother 3, which deals with, spoiler alert, a mother dying. So like that like really impacted me in like a similar way to like say Outer Wilds for you. And in that, I think Mother 3 is super special. And I guess it can never be removed from that bias to me.
Yeah. Totally understandable. And then after 5 games of absence, Murph comes back for the tantamount Dead Space episode, the original Dead Space.
I'm gonna let you place this.
Hoo boy. Okay. I feel For me, it almost sits here in the same category as Telling Lies, Respect the Craft, and Would Recommend, or even just in Would Recommend by itself. Because... Because it is just such a unique, singular sci-fi world and concept, so fully realized. It's a world and setting completely unique to video games that it feels like I'm having difficulty articulating here. It feels like a sci-fi concept from the 1960s that you'd find in some like hardback edition that someone then adapted into a video game years ago, but it just is the video game by itself without the source material. And I think the limb dismemberment system is really cool and interesting. The necromorphs are a cool concept. I think it goes on too long, and I very quickly lost the survival horror feeling. But
Go ahead.
I think for its genre, for the generation it came out with, and it feels like a must play because it feels so special and so unique, and so of the time. It's like when I played Half-Life 2, I felt like I was playing an important game. I just don't feel like I would ever really, like, now that I have the knowledge of what Dead Space is, I have internalized it, I have put it on the shelf, I don't need to really look at it anymore, for me, personally. So I would recommend it.
It is like a curious historical artifact. You know, it's in a weird place of like too much production. It feels like a B tier, like it feels like a high production value game that you would have played almost run of the mill, but you're right in that its design focus and sensibility sort of edge it out to something that is totally memorable, especially in terms of the story and stuff. They may have taken a little bit too much cues from like Half-Life, especially in terms of Isaac being quiet. But like that being said, I think the game is still impressive. I would recommend it. I agree that may be its only thing.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's smelly. I think it's just a perfectly adequate game.
Yeah. No, it's just kind of a quality of, like, if someone would said to me, like, hey, should I play Dead Space? I've never played it before. I'd be like, yes, 100%, you should play Dead Space.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be able to, like, go on beyond that.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing else hits it. Yeah. But
so,
then after that, we got Link's Awakening.
Link's Awakening. Another thing I'm on record for, this is probably my favorite 2D Zelda. So for me, it's very much like a quote-unquote perfect game in my eyes. So I could, like, slot it there next to Mother 2. The only thing I would, like, maybe pull it out of is maybe I don't know how much I respect the craft so much outside of just, like, the tight gameplay loop. But I don't really know if I could, like, argue that it's, like, innovative or impressive in that.
Nah, fuck it. You're talking to the wrong person to talk me out of that. Put it next to Mother 2.
Okay, fair enough.
I like it. It's a good game. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, no, it's the Titanfall 2 problem where I'm just like, yeah, it's a really good Zelda game. It's a really good video game. I will continue to play it for years after this fact. If someone was like, hey, do you want to, not should I play Link's Awakening, hey Murph, are you going to play Link's Awakening again? I'll be like, yes, 100%. I'm going to go play it right now even.
Yeah, so good. And then, like, the other thing is like, I think the two main criticisms I have of the Zelda game is either it goes on too long or it feels unfinished at points.
It can feel distracted.
And Link's Awakening is neither.
Yes.
Like, Link's Awakening doesn't have problems. It is just a pure essential game. So in that, I think it's perfect.
Yeah. So,
sort of not a perfect game.
Other end of the spectrum. We have Brutal Legend, which we did with our dear friend Brendan from The Crawl, who just broke 5K on his YouTube channel. Go subscribe, get him up to 6K. And beyond, even.
Yeah. I want him 7K by the year 2020.
Well, I want him 8K.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Brutal Legend. I feel Brutal
I'm
Legend
letting you
is
say it. Go ahead.
one that maybe wholly I respect it. I don't really know who I would recommend it to unless I 100% knew their music tastes and their game genre tastes. Um, it doesn't quite tickle my fancy. It's intriguing gameplay concept wise, but I don't feel it really follows through on many of its gameplay ideas. But it is just kind of neat. And
what prevents the stank?
Oh, it can be smelly. It can be stanky. Um, Nothing really. I just sort of got caught up looking at the top half of the Murph diagram.
Oh, I see. This is a common thing. I don't think smelly is necessarily bad because I think this is a very specific kind of game.
Yes,
And
it has a jank.
It's a fucking adventure action game that's secretly an RTS with vehicle elements. It's just a mishmash. And in terms of the aesthetic, it's also very specific. Metal is not a universally beloved genre.
Yeah. It's like if your friend from high school is like, "Hey, I want you to come around. I'm doing a show downtown at this bar with me and my band." And you go there and one of the band members has a set of bagpipes and the others have two guitars and you're like, "I don't know what I'm in for." And you sit through it and you're like,
and it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's like, "Man, I didn't know you guys had that in you." Yeah. I'm not going to buy your CD at the end of the show, but I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think respect the craft and just a bit smelly.
Yeah. What about Ao Oni?
Ao Oni. So this was I'm going to go out on a limb and say this was our oddest pick for an episode.
I was happy with it though.
Yeah. Yeah, just sort of we wanted something quick and easy and just a little bit odd, and I said, "Hey, what about an RPG Maker horror game?" Where would I put Ao Oni on this?
I would put it in. I'm sorry, I'm looking. I would put it in would recommend. Just would recommend.
You think?
It's free. If I had to pay money for it, I would not recommend it.
That's fair.
I don't think it's smelly enough. It has a bit of an RPG Maker stank to it.
But if you're playing an RPG Maker game, you know that stank is coming with it.
You're very familiar with the stank, and it's not, So in that, but it's also not a very RPG heavy game. It's a fucking horror game.
Yeah.
And you're mainly just trying to dodge people in the overworld or solve puzzles.
It's a fine evening to play. If you know what you're getting into, it's a good evening.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, up there with Dead Space, I feel fine with that.
Okay. All right, so now we have a complex one.
A complex
flavor.
The most put off game in the history of the Daydream Cast. Multiple times we said, next episode is No More Heroes, and then No More Heroes never materialized.
Look.
And we finally did it, and I still don't know how I feel about No More Heroes.
It's a very complex game. It's one of those where it's like you eat something or you taste something, and you're like, I don't like it. I kind of like it. I respect it. And then you remember you don't like it again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like smelling your own fart. The video game.
I don't know about that.
Where you're like, I'm enjoying this, but should I? I think it may go down right there next to Mother 3 at the 4-piece ratio.
Yes, where it's like the only thing is would you recommend it?
I think I would. I think I would say to people, if I found out someone hadn't played No More Heroes and had access, the ability to play No More Heroes, I'd be like, "Hey, you should play No More Heroes." Fully prepared for them to come to me the next day and say, "You son of a bitch."
Yeah.
But I think people should play it because it's so how it uses the medium of grinding in an RPG to do a commentary on the state of capitalism is so fascinating and something that could only be done in a video game like No More Heroes.
It's perfect, and like, yes, it's frustrating at points, but like even the style, the music, the repetitive music, because the same songs fucking play over and over
Yeah.
again. But like, it just all of it just, or like the ghost town overworld, just like something about it just feels, I don't know. There's something about it that's good and bad at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Dark Messiah of Might and Magic. The first Arcane title for the Daydream cast. How do we feel about it?
I almost feel like, because it is like fun, but it's like the fun quickly wears off when you're just like continue playing it past like the first 3 to 5 hours, and it can feel like it can drag a lot. And people will say like, "Oh my God, the kick button," but as the game went on, I found myself falling out of favor with the kick button. I almost feel like it is, very boldly, I'm going to say, just a bit smelly on its own, or maybe just a bit smelly and slightly tickles my fancy.
I would put it just a bit smelly. It's fine.
Okay. And that's disappointing.
And again, like, I just want to say, just a bit smelly does not mean dog shit game. Yes. If it was dog shit, it'd be its own circle. Just a bit smelly to me indicates almost rancid flavor, but it's also something to appreciate and respect on its own. I think Dark Messiah is a niche game that's hard to recommend, doesn't really hit my fancy, and I don't know if it's Arcane's best in terms of craft, but it is its own unique identity.
Yeah, and people still harken back to it like all the time. I wanted to play it on the cast because I kept hearing people like bring it up, like, "Oh my God, remember Dark Messiah of Might and Magic?" And I wanted to check it out because I'm a Might and Magic head. And I just feel like the wonder and the sense of like the environmental interaction, the immersive sim elements of the game just wore off as it went on. It just kind of became a hack and slash to me, where you occasionally stood by a spiked wall so you could easily end combat encounters by kicking dudes into it. There's nothing it did that I have not seen done better in games that came after it, or even games that came before it.
Damn. Scathing review, but also true.
Speaking of...
Oof.
So this was one you did with Calvin, because he had played Dark Souls remastered on his Switch. And I have played Dark Souls all the way through. Oof. I have done that. Where do you want to put it?
Give me a second to think. I must meditate on this. I would put it, honestly, in... Does it tickle my fancy? Yes. Is it a bit smelly? Yes. Do I respect the craft? Yes. Would I recommend it? No.
Oh, okay.
No. So I would put it in that little red, green, blue, right in between Brutal Legend and more. That's where I would put it.
Okay. I wonder, because I could almost see myself putting it in the No More Heroes Mother 3 pit. Because it is like Dead Space. It is just something where it feels important to play, especially in the current landscape where Souls-like is a genre label.
Yeah.
But also I feel like there are, like, almost every other FromSoft game I have played, I would tell people to play that before Dark Souls 1. Just because they feel more accessible, and I just quote-unquote find them to be better.
Yes, especially Dark Souls 2.
I think, agree, Murph. Even though I don't enjoy Dark Souls
2 and Demon Souls, does Murph have a based opinion? I'm just kidding.
I haven't played Demon Souls or Dark Souls 2. Don't put words in my mouth.
That's why I said that. I
was like... I feel... Because, like, putting it there and tickles my fancy, the loop, the gameplay loop that FromSoft constructed for their games is still very addictive and still very fun, even when I don't enjoy the setting and encounter design of the game so much. So I think putting it in that little sliver is just fine for me, ultimately.
Okay, yeah, you can do that. Yep.
So, Riven, the sequel to Myst.
I like Riven. I like it. It grew on me. It grows on me as time goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You're like, it's a worse Outer Wilds. And in my head, I'm like, they share the same sphere.
Uh-huh.
I don't think of things as good or bad. I think of them as...
I don't
know. I respect how it does it. I think no matter what, it goes in respect.
No, I would put it in respect to craft, just purely on how it still feels so unique to itself. Yeah. The graphics look amazing, and that's because they did shit like build miniature models and just like, it looks so good, and so I have to respect the craft on that end.
Maybe you should just stay and respect the craft and only respect the craft.
Okay, that's fine. I was gonna say maybe you could talk me into putting it in the Telling Lies Valley of Respect the Craft and would recommend.
No, I don't think I would recommend it to everyone. It's like Myst, where it's like you have to have a very especially Riven, you have to have a very specific understanding of puzzle games.
Yeah.
Or like an appreciation for what kind of game that is.
And especially,
and I will say, in terms of Outer Wilds, I think Outer Wilds is better about having you enjoy the game before needing to solve problems.
Yeah.
Whereas Riven feels aimless in a bad way.
And also, to recommend Riven, you have to understand that they have played and or liked Myst.
And that's a big ask too.
Yeah. So I think up there in Respect the Craft, I feel fine with that.
Okay.
We're getting some decent spread here.
Yes.
Where will Castlevania Rondo of Blood fall?
I think this is a would recommend and tickles my fancy.
I was about to say, I was going to say exactly the same thing.
It's the perfect spot because I don't think in particular it's especially better in craft than some other Castlevanias, but I don't think it's smelly either.
No.
I think it is my personal favorite 2D action version of Castlevania, and I would recommend it to anyone, but it's like, because of how streamlined it is and how much it perfected specific things but not other things, I think it's in that sweet spot right there.
Yeah, it feels like, of the Castlevania games I've played, and even Castlevania adjacent games I've played, this was the easiest just to get in and get out of. Like, I was like, okay, yep, this is a Castlevania game, I recognize this. And just moving along with it, it's very easy, it's very likable, it's very acceptable. And while it does have those, like, graphical and musical flexes that we talked about in the episode, I don't know if it's enough to push it into the Respect the Craft bubble. So I think would recommend, tickles my fancy, very easy to do.
Yeah. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly, a game that I have now beat.
Oh, good.
Yes, thank fucking God. It took fucking forever.
Following the episode.
Well, look, I had to find a place to live. Y'all, cut me some fucking slack, y'all.
So, Fatal Frame 2, our two guests enjoyed this, I think, a bit more than either of us did.
Yes. I think they got really into, I don't know, because I do think it has a very special cult following and horror sensibilities that I think is unique to this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I think it's really special. I don't think it tickles my fancy.
No, I'm eyeing the spot where Jet Set Radio is.
I'm wondering if it's smelly.
No, I guess it's not. I think that's just more me, where it's kind of the Alan Wake 2 thing, where just like the story and presentation I'm all about. The actual meat and potatoes gameplay I kind of fell out of favor of.
You see, I'm the opposite, where I'm not opposite because I think the story's well done, but this is like the only survival horror game where I actively enjoyed the combat. I feel like this is the game where confronting the enemies felt very appropriate. So for me, I would put it in would recommend Respect the Craft.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine by me.
Okay. This has been a very fleshed out, well-rounded list.
I know. It's the power. The power of the monstrosity.
I think it's going to be a perfectly symmetrical list almost, too.
Oh. All right.
Because
Quackshot, starring Donald Duck.
We went through like 4 horror titles or dark, evil titles, and then we ended on Quackshot. Where would you put it?
I think it is straight up just tickles my fancy.
I agree. That's where I was gonna put it. Yep.
Like if someone was like, "Hey, should I play Quackshot?" I would. If you know about Quackshot, you're probably the kind of person that would enjoy Quackshot. You don't need me to recommend it. You know.
Yeah.
It looks good for a Genesis game, but a lot of Genesis games look pretty good.
Yeah, yep. I think, the thing is like, I think that is a game that was specifically only for the hosts. Like, it was for me, you, and Pavlos. And I was like, we like Donald Duck, we like fucking old school games. Let's play that. I don't think it's smelly. I would not recommend it. I don't think it's impressive. But I think it's good.
We were sitting in the log cabin on the Satellite of Dreams, sipping our cocoa by the fire, the storm raging outside, and we heard a knock on the door. We opened it, and there was a wet, disheveled Pavlos. And he was like, "Can we play Quackshot?" And we said yes. We brought him in, we put on Quackshot, and he was happy.
It was a good time.
And we all had a good time.
That's all gaming is for. So I think that is a perfect Venn diagram or Murph diagram.
Yes. And
if you were to give a number 1 to any game, what would you have done it for?
I do feel it's No More Heroes. No More Heroes.
It's so weird because if you checked Murph's backlogged, his bottom game, in terms of what he liked, was No More Heroes.
But it still made the liked list.
That's fair.
It is a game that feels more interesting to talk about and to analyze than it is to play, and that will forever be its curse. But I think, now that I have some distance from it, I would be so much more interested to go back into it, knowing what it has, or even going on to the sequels.
Yeah.
Like, Link's Awakening, perfect Zelda game, perfect video game. But No More Heroes is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And
interesting is so important.
And I'm a dude that likes to talk. I'm on a podcast. I'm on 2 podcasts. So games that give me a lot to talk about, whether it's talking about the game design, the story design, the problematic elements, that is food for my soul.
I agree. And it also just makes sense. Like, looking at all of them on the table, it feels like No More Heroes at the center. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So wow. Thank you so much for doing this, Murph. This has been Murph's passion.
Yeah, my passion is intersecting circles and sometimes ovals.
Mm-hmm. I was impressed. I didn't think this 4 made sense, but it totally does.
It totally does. Once you abandon the mindset of tiered rankings and embrace the diagram, new avenues of discussion and thinking about games as a medium open up to you.
Wow. I hope you learned something, dear listener. I certainly did. And until next time,
keep your dreams close, but your cast closer.
That's a good one. I like that.